We're here on the Sango Ranch in the southeastern Zimbabwe in the Save Valley Conservancy, which is one of the flagship areas for conservation of the wildlife here in Zimbabwe. Going back to the 20s when this area was first cleared and really dedicated to cattle ranching, really and went along with that was almost total elimination of the wildlife, particularly the predators, your lions and your leopards and stuff like that, because they were a threat to the cattle. Also buffalo and other plains game that either competed with them or perhaps had a disease risk. And so this area was more or less depleted of wildlife by the middle of the 20th century. There was a severe drought in the early 90s, so cattle ranching became not economically viable in this region at that time. And so these visionary people kind of saw, hey, there was a better land use for this, and really primarily driven by big game hunting. They needed to get big game animals back on this landscape, and they saw that that was an economically beneficial use of this land, perhaps more beneficial for this particular area than cattle ranching. And so they took that economic model, turned it into a premier big game hunting destination. It's a real testament to the vision of those folks to see how this landscape could be used economically, and still is economically viable, using that wildlife in a way that gives it some value, provides economic benefits to the people of this region. It's a great example of the value of this long-term stable private land ownership in this part of the world, where it's really led to very healthy game populations, to the point that the Save Valley Conservancy is able to provide animals to other places in the country of Zimbabwe to help restore their wildlife populations. We were lucky enough during our visit here to participate in an elephant relocation.
So we've just started translocation of elephants off of the ranch. We are proposed to move 400, and we are overstocked with elephants at the moment. So our carrying capacity is around 700 to 800 elephants for the entire conservancy. Our last estimate showed we had over 2,500. So we're in a process of trying to destock elephants.
We practice sustainable conservation, and this is part of the deal. Anytime we get in and dart elephants, it's a little bit chaotic for the first couple of minutes, but once we've got everything sorted out, it becomes a very slick and clean operation of loading elephants and making sure that they're all good. And we're sending them to a new conservation area, helping to promote Zimbabwe's conservation image.
They're moving to a national parks concession area up in the Zambezi Valley. Hopefully that's going to relieve some of the pressure that we have here. Elephants within our area are destroying vegetation at an unsustainable rate.
It's that type of activity that allows those things to take place to promote overall conservation throughout the country. So it's really exciting to be a part of that. This area has one of the biggest rhino populations anywhere in Zimbabwe or in southern Africa. Anytime you're trying to promote rhino conservation, there's a concern with poaching activity and the value of that rhino horn in the international illegal trade market. And that's the primary threat to many species, particularly when you talk about elephants and rhinos, but other species of big game as well, with bushmeat poaching and other kinds of things. And so the hunting and other activity that goes on in these places allows them to have a very robust anti-poaching program where they are able to protect those rhinos, allow the population to grow over time, and they've had great success with doing that. We have a lot of different conservation initiatives, but one that's really been with us for a long time, but an important one for us and for the members of SCI is helping with anti-poaching. And anti-poaching activity in Africa and other parts of the world as well is primarily driven by operators, big game hunters, and people who really care about wildlife, and we recognize that. And so we've supported a variety of projects related to anti-poaching all over this region, from training game scouts to working with community game guards in Namibia. We have a project right here supporting the rhino anti-poaching unit at the Save Valley Conservancy. It's just a great partnership for us as Safari Club International Foundation to work with Save Valley and Sango Ranch to promote that kind of activity. We've also been involved with helping to support training of game rangers through the Southern African Wildlife College, for example, that trains rangers so that they're ready to go out there in the field and be active in helping to protect wildlife. A lot of ways that we can help to encourage anti-poaching activity here in Africa, and we're trying to be involved in all those things. As we look to the future, we know that anti-poaching are really important to SCI and its members, and we're always looking for ways that we can help to have an impact to prevent the depletion of wildlife through illegal trade. That's something that's very important to us and to our members, and so we're certainly going to continue to be active here and elsewhere in Africa and those kind of projects. And we hope as we get into the future that we can find some more projects to be a part of and can really have an impact on that, because it is an important thing.